Moving on now, a teenager has been killed and at least 10 wounded in fresh shootings in Chicago. The 16-year-old boy died on the scene after being shot in the head. Those wounded, including a police officer, were shot in separate incidents on Monday. Police are investigating the shootings. Over the weekend, 6 people were killed and at least 39 injured in shootings across the city. This was the most violent weekend in Chicago since last September, when 4 people were killed and 53 were injured. Over 1,000 people have been shot in Chicago so far this year. Writer and radio host Stephen Lenman joins us now from the city of Chicago to offer us more insight on that story. Mr. Lenman, give us your perspective on the alarming level of violence in your city.
Oh, I know what goes on in Chicago, and I've written a great deal about it from time to time over the years. I can remember once in an article I wrote a number of years ago saying on a typical summer weekend in Chicago, there can be a dozen or more killings, either cops killing black people or Latino people, or people killing each other outside of the police. And this past weekend in Chicago, we had unusually mild weather for April. It was almost a summer weekend in Chicago, so it's no surprise we should have an extremely violent weekend. But Chicago is known as the police repression capital of America. Just horrid things go on. I'm very grateful that where I live, I'm not in the heart of the storm, but I don't live far away from it.
Mr. Lennon, is the violence that's taking place in Chicago just a microcosm of what's really going on in the United States?
Oh, absolutely. This goes on in big cities across America, small cities, urban areas, rural areas, and it's part of the system of the government at all levels of America, repressing its people, enforcing the rule of the powerful over the many, depriving them of fundamental rights. America has a constitution and statute laws enumerating all sorts of rights for the people, along with international laws, and they're systematically violated at all levels of government. America is no democracy. I call it accurately a fascist police state, and it doesn't matter whether Democrats or Republicans run the country. It's really one party with 2 wings, and I'm very, very down on what will happen after Obama. If people think that something will change for the better when he leaves and a new president takes over, my thought is that things will get worse, not better.
And this level of gun violence that we're seeing, it still has failed to budge the gun laws in any way.
Well, America has a Second Amendment claiming the right to bear arms, which has nothing to do with people going into stores and buying guns. It's all about protecting the country against foreign invaders way back in the in the early days of the Republic, when local militias needed to be involved just in case the defense of the country was needed. There was a war against Britain back in the mid-1770s. So this is what the Second Amendment was all about, completely misinterpreted. I certainly don't believe the government should tell people how they should live their lives, but I certainly would feel a lot safer if people didn't go around toting guns that might be pointed at me and maybe cause me to become one of the fatalities. I'm not at all in favor of that.
And one last question. Do you think that the fact that the American public have lost a lot of trust in law enforcement also pushes them towards the issue of apprehending their own firearms?
I think for the most part, you've got a fringe in America that feels this way, that literally wants to take the law into its own hands. But I think the problem in America is Americans are too indifferent to the horrors going on around them that affects their lives. And I've commented on this so often in interviews and in my writing, that if people really knew and understood what was being done to them, the harm being done to them, they would do something about it. But the fact that they kept in the dark, the media in America won't explain anything, and they're simply not aware of what's going on that's harming them. So literally, government in America at all levels gets away with murder. And again, it just only seems to get worse.
Thank you very much, writer and radio host Stephen Lenman, joining us from Chicago.